KUAM News Headlines is presented by Calvo's Insurance, a legacy of trust, serving Micronesia since 1938. Matson and the Adahi Tano Program. Cars Plus, home of Guam's first and only lifetime limited powertrain warranty. McDonald's of Guam, I'm loving it. And King's Restaurants, always open, always local, and serving up favorites for over 40 years.
Starting now on Primetime, with more restrictions being lifted, Governor Leon Guerrero says there is a need for continued expanded testing. Plus, the Director of Customs and Quarantine, Ike Pareto, is placed on administrative leave after a physical altercation with an officer. And in light of the coronavirus pandemic, there is a concern for inmates at the Department of Corrections facilities. Hafade, my friends, I'm Jason Salas, and we wish you good evening if you're streaming us or watching us on KUAM TV. And we thank you for doing so. As we start off the newscast by getting you up to speed with the latest COVID case count, as the latest data from Public Health says one new case of coronavirus was reported to Public Health yesterday out of 250 tested people. The people were tested at Public Health's lab, and the case was identified through community screening. To date, this brings the total number of positive cases on Guam to 310, and there have been 5 deaths, 3 hospitalizations, currently 103 active cases, and 202 people that have been released from isolation. Well, as more restrictions are being lifted, Governor Leon Guerrero says that comes with a need for more expanded testing. In the past couple of weeks, the recent positive COVID-19 cases have been determined through contact tracing and from the community outreach drive-through, as well as walk-in testing sites. The island's Magahaga tells KUAM News the island can expect to see expanding testing more frequently.
We have the capacity to do it, and I just want to say that right now we have already tested about 16,000 plus of our population, which is about close to a 10% rate, which supersedes a lot more of the other states.
Adelup Press Secretary Crystal Paco San Augustine says the administration is still working to schedule additional outreach efforts. Well, speaking of Adelup, the administration says that we are almost there with having a facility to house the island's homeless community. Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio is working with the Mayor's Council. He's formed an office to provide homeless and poverty assistance, which is being funded by the local government. Additionally, the office will have its own budget moving forward. The island's second-in-command says they expect the General Services Agency to award contracts in the next few days in order to open a facility to provide shelter for the island's homeless families.
And as we go forward, there's going to be other sectors or other types of housing and shelter that will come into play. We're working with Catholic Social Services, understanding a need for transitional homes. That's something that's up there. And then, as the governor pointed out, we are funding a operation at the Mayor's Council. I expect that within the next week or so, we'll be seeing people and a formal structure coming up.
The newly created Interagency Council on Homelessness, chaired by Tenorio, is expected to gather for their first meeting on Thursday, the 16th, just before lunchtime. Well, some rather harrowing stats now, as United Airlines has announced that it may have to furlough as many as 36,000 frontline staffers on October 1st. In a company-wide memo, the airline says the decision comes even after months of aggressive cost-cutting and proactive capital raising. The airline says operations leaders communicated directly with their teams in compliance with labor laws that require at least 60 days advance notice of mass layoffs. The firm says not everyone who receives a notice will be involuntarily furloughed. It's still working with the unions and employees on voluntary programs to reduce furloughs. United provided a breakdown of potential employment losses by work group, but did not indicate how many on Guam might be affected. Meanwhile, Japan Airlines announced that it is extending its Guam flight suspensions until September 30th, also due, of course, to the ongoing pandemic caused by coronavirus. In other island news headlines tonight, Customs Director Ike Pareto has been placed on administrative leave after an alleged physical altercation with one of his customs officers. Airport Executive Manager John Kanata says a complaint was filed with the airport police. No injuries in the alleged incident. By way of a statement, the governor's office says Jesse Mendiola of the Marianas Regional Fusion Center has been appointed as acting director. The statement adds a quote, "As this matter is currently under investigation, we will refrain from further comment. And if you'd like more information on this story, you can, of course, go to KUAM.com or the KUAM News mobile app. We are, of course, on iOS and Android. Let's move forward in our rundown now as Federal Public Defender John Gorman addressed a letter to Chief Judge Francis Tydinko Gatewood outlining concerns regarding COVID-19 and precautions and procedures at the Guam Department of Corrections facilities. Recently, a corrections officer tested positive for coronavirus, and with that, 4 officers from the Manila facility were quarantined, and this has heightened the Office of the Federal Public Defender's concerns. Now, according to lawyer Gorman, his office was informed that none of the clients were told about the infected DOC officer. Public Health did not conduct contact tracing and did not follow mitigation procedures. Additionally, despite the officer testing positive, none of his clients have been tested. Attorney Gorman attached a letter from the Assistant Director and Counsel General for the Federal Bureau of Prisons that was sent to the U.S. District Court for Washington Chief Judge Ricardo Martinez that mirrored a similar sentiment. Gorman asked the court question the U.S. Marshals Service and DOC on mitigation procedures, testing for inmates and detainees, and if they're developing an individualized COVID-19 strategy. We reached out to a DOC for a response with Major Anton Uggan saying, quote, "The department has received a copy of John Gorman's letter. After reviewing it, the director withholds any further comment at this time, as the matter is ongoing and legal." That again, Major Anton Uggan for DOC. Also tonight, exactly a month away from the projected date to reopen schools, the aforementioned Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio told our KUAM Adriana Cotero that he is in close communications with Guam Department of Education Superintendent John Fernandez and Public Health on a regular basis.
Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio is scheduling a meeting for next week with the Physicians Committee on Education, all school leaders of both public and private schools, to delve into the big issues.
The big issues are going to be what's the social distancing mandate, what's the occupancy level going to be for schools. That's going to dictate a lot of the scheduling. And
earlier this week, KUAM spoke with Superintendent John Fernandez on the plans for the next school year. A parent survey was sent out asking of the 3 curriculum models being offered, which are they more inclined to choose for their children. Fernandez says the department utilized one of the public middle school submissions thus far, and it determined 70% of the responses favored the 100% distance learning option.
So you can imagine out of let's just say out of a population of 1,000 students, which might be a regular middle school, and you're looking at 700 of them wanting to do online learning or the hard copy learning at home, and the remaining 300 coming to school, it really kind of shows you where you need to focus your efforts.
As the August 11th date nears, the administration is leveling up their efforts to finalize a safe reopening for all schools.
There's still a struggle, and there are a lot of parents out there that are very, they're a little bit hesitant about what's going on with the decisions to go to school. But I think over the next few weeks, we're really trying to do everything we can to understand what the needs are of the schools and try and facilitate a safe opening to school.
Today was the deadline for parents to submit the surveys. If you have not been contacted or received a form, GDOE asks that you contact your school directly. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Adriana Cotero.
Now, we've previously reported that in District Court, 5 people with disabilities are suing the Guam Department of Education superintendent for the lack of educational services being provided to their individualized education program. In speaking with the Lieutenant Governor on the matter, he says the Guam public school system has a long-standing challenge with trying to provide services that are more readily accessible in some communities in the states, and this includes servicing those with disabilities.
We've always been wanting to be very supportive of all the peripheral efforts the governor led in the last year, funding priority for the autism group, understanding that there are gaps in the school system for autism. And so, we want to be supportive and to try and enable DOE to meet the demand of the parents. And right now I would say that unfortunately they aren't meeting the demand, but it's something that we care about and wait to see how we can be helpful.
We got to take a pause real quickly and pay some of the bills, but please stay with us because when we come back, more Island News headlines right here on Prime.
Get up-to-the-minute news, plus access to alerts, streaming radio, promotions, and more on your mobile device by downloading the KUAM News mobile app, available at the App Store now.